Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Internal Athlete podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Antonia.
And we are the Internal Athlete. So, the Internal Athlete is a training system that promotes internal development by training the fundamental raw materials of the body and the mind. Everything we do in life can become easier, more enjoyable, much more skillful and satisfying.
Excellent. That sounds good. Can you sign me up?
Yeah, sign me up. Yeah, that sounds
Okay, so let's start by talking about embodiment. So it's a term that's becoming increasingly used and bandied around, if you like, in mind-body training circles. Could you tell us what it means and how it's important?
Yeah, well, it's definitely important. And yeah, for sure, it's one of those things you kind of hear about online and stuff these days. People talk about it a lot. So let's just kind of discuss it in a fairly broad sense. And let's say there are two main considerations that we'll cover. So the first one is that this body that we all have is an organic, holistic, biological, adaptive changing system of function. Okay. So what that means is that the body is constantly changing and adapting to how we use it. Yeah, what we do with it.
Environmental factors?
Yeah, external factors like environmental factors. And a really important point, the quality and content of the mind strata that goes along with that particular body. Yeah, makes a massive difference.
So the mind and the body are interdependent. You can't
they're
separate
interdependent.
them.
No, they work together. Okay. So the second consideration is that runs alongside this is that in our modern culture, in our modern society, we've developed a strong leaning towards mental activity, okay? And we've moved away from physicality, from the nuts and bolts of
physical activity.
So, we spend a lot of time, looking at screens and everything's at a fast pace. There's lots of technology and
instant gratification
and stress and stuff like this. So as a consequence of that kind of tendency, and it's not really a new thing, this is a tendency that the human being has anyway, right? To lean towards this kind of mental dominance. It's well documented if you look at like ancient texts and stuff. But it's just in our modern culture, it's become major.
Well, I guess lifestyle and culture, it's changed fundamentally, radically, hasn't it, over the last few years, even in our lifetime. But the body hasn't changed that much in comparison.
Over thousands of years, the human body is still pretty much the same. So for thousands of years, pretty much everybody, apart from a very few privileged people, would spend all day, every day doing physical stuff, proper physical stuff, lifting stuff, moving stuff, working, dexterous
walking,
bits and being outside in nature, in the natural flow of things. And yeah, so we don't do that. So we've moved away from that big time, and those causal factors have a certain effect. So what those effects are.
So what tell us about the implications?
Well, the first thing is that we've become physically fragile as a general tendency. Okay, so that's one thing. People have this kind of like physical fragility, not very resilient on a very basic level, but also to illness and stuff like that. And then on the other hand, we see a lot more kind of mental health issues, and people find it very difficult to deal with stress. So stress is a major problem.
The mental activity and energy isn't being expended through the physical.
Yeah, so if you have like a certain amount of units of energy per day, then let's say you want to use a lot of those on basic physical activity, right? This has got nothing to do with training. This is just nuts and bolts of physical existence, right? And if you don't, then those units of energy disrupt the nervous system. So you
homeostasis.
Yeah. So you become mentally agitated, right? Kind of like stressed. So yeah. So in terms of embodiment, the general tendency is that we are not really embodied. We live in the mind, really.
And the mind is intangible, isn't it? So it's sort of imagination, memory. it's
thoughts, ideas,
not
concepts,
in
intellect.
the present moment.
Yeah, it's not in the present moment.
Future and
So the biggest problem as a result of this is that you don't want being lost in thought to be your default setting, your default mode of operation. Okay. So as a result of our kind of modern tendencies, unfortunately, being lost in thought is most people's default setting.
being distracted from reality.
Absolutely, being distracted from reality. So what that means is that we're always consumed with thinking about things, and that distracts us away from not only what's happening around us on the outside, but what's really important is the nuts and bolts of our down-to-earth physicality. Okay, so we don't really know anything about what's going
experience.
on. Yeah, and it's funny really because we always kind of like think that our thoughts are somehow true, and we kind of trust them. This is grounded reality, but compared to the nuts and bolts of the human body, there's no comparison, right? One's a fabrication and one is kind of like in real time. So not being present is a major problem.
Okay, so you mentioned that the internal athlete kind of training system or approach. Can you go into a little bit more depth about that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's not something that you can just do, and it isn't something you can learn about by, studying anatomy or neuroscience. Those things are fine, but they have nothing to do with training and they have nothing to do with embodiment. It's a common confusion.
So the kind of theory practice distinction, I guess.
Yeah. The theory doesn't help. Only practice. So if you don't practice, you don't have embodiment. It's as simple as that. Okay. So with the internal athlete training system, it's a step-by-step process. And let's say the first 2 steps are the key steps for most people. Okay. You have to do those 2 steps for a long time. For some time. I don't want to put people off. So the first step is that we want to open the body. So an effect of these factors that we're talking about with modern society is that the body tends to become, have a lot of habitual contraction, which is like habitual tension in the soft tissues and habitual stiffness in the joints. So let's just as an example. So if I contract my hand like this, then you can see after a little while, like the knuckles go white and the tendons and stuff kind of pop out and the color of the hand changes. And that's because the contraction is squeezing out the blood and the fluids from the tissues. So if I stayed like this for a long time, I would lose feeling in my hand. So this part of my body starts to become unknown to me, like a piece of wood. It's like a lump of dead wood. Okay. So if I wanted to train this part, the first thing I'm going to have to do is release the contraction. So let's say now if I start to open my hand, just opening it a little bit, I can feel the tension disappear from my shoulder, my arm, and I can feel my blood flow come back in. The feeling comes back in, the flow of perception. And now, this is now more embodied, right? So now I can have conscious control of this part of my body. So we want to do that with the whole body. We want to open all the joints and restore them back to function, to natural function. And we want to do it with all of the soft tissues as well, especially the fascia, the connective tissue that kind of holds it all together. It does much more than hold it together. It's also, sensory, stabilizes, adds elasticity to our movement. So that's the first thing. We want to open the body. It's majorly important. If you don't do that, and you do other kinds of training on top of it, it's like trying to build on a wobbly foundation. It doesn't work very well. The second thing we want to do with our open body is we want to rebuild it and reorganize what we normally think of as being separate parts. We want to build into a cohesive, harmonious unit.
You're developing structural integrity.
Yeah, that's it. So we develop our body structure. The structure isn't anything that's stiff. It's like it sounds a bit stiff, but it's not like that. It's more fluid structure, really, if you can entertain those 2 concepts simultaneously. So as an example, we'd want to balance the skeleton and work on skeletal alignment in relation to release in the soft tissues. And just doing those 2 steps, if you get a grasp of those 2 steps, you're onto a winner, big time. It's going to make a massive change to where your body operates. You'll have a different body, and it'll have a huge effect on your mind state as well.
So why is it such a difficult process for people?
What which bit? What, opening? Or all of it?
Yeah, all of it. Opening and yeah. It's not just something that you achieve and then that's it, I've done it. I've done my first 2 steps, now I'm moving on to the next stage.
No, those steps you continue to do throughout.
Through life, right?
Through life, yeah.
Forever.
There are other steps, but you always come back to the foundation, right? It's what everybody misses. We always look for novelty and variety and new stuff and more stuff.
Lose the depth.
And it doesn't work. You've got to have depth. So coming back to your point, people find it difficult because we're so conditioned to be outside, to have our attention outside, to be distracted, to be lost in thought. And to do any of this stuff, we've got to bring the mind and our attention inside to the present moment, which is, as I already mentioned, it only happens in your body.
And I guess it goes against kind of conventional ideas of exercising and sort of I'm going to run a marathon, so I'm going to train to the marathon rather than just I'm enjoying the process or I'm learning the process of doing what I'm doing.
For sure. There's nothing wrong with having goals, right? It's good to have goals. You should have goals, yeah. But it's how you go about achieving those goals. So you don't try and do the effect, yeah. So that's often what we do. We try and do the effect. What we've got to do is put in the causal factors that create the effect. And that's entirely process-based. Yeah, entirely process-based. To get to grips with being process-based training, you've got to get your mind on board to be present.
So what about when you hear people talking about, you train that you run on the running machine and at the same time you can put a podcast in and learn something? I mean,
well, you do like squatting and you do a crossword at the same time or do Sudoku.
So I'm training my mind and my body at the same time.
Yeah, so this is a common thing that you hear, and it comes from really a confused understanding of what we're trying to do. So to me, that kind of stuff isn't mind-body training, it's distraction. Yeah, so let's say, take the example of being on the treadmill. I'm on a treadmill, and then I put my headphones in, so I'm listening to music, so that's another distraction. And then I'm looking at a screen of a virtual running track, so that's something else which isn't really real and takes me away. So we're taking our attention away from what we're doing. Yeah, completely. We want to run away from the experience that we have in the body. So that it's not that doing that doesn't have any benefit, it has some benefit, but nowhere near as much benefit to removing the distraction and bringing your attention inside to the real-time experience of what you're doing in the here and now. And that's why people find it difficult. Because as you start to pay attention, as you start to open the body and you learn and feel what's really going on, to begin with, and ongoing, it's uncomfortable. But learning how to deal with discomfort, and discomfort's a natural part of the cycle of everything, yeah, in terms of the body and the mind. It's natural. If you try and avoid one half of your experience, it creates a huge imbalance and you just go around in circles, okay? So learning how to deal with discomfort, to bring your attention inside, is a major part of the training.
Yeah, well, it's easy to relax when you're, doing something that doesn't really challenge. Yeah, absolutely. But it's just, the skill is training yourself to relax when you're putting effort into the training. Yeah,
for sure. So, when, because people often associate this kind of mind-body training with, being relaxed. Very, very rarely do we use the term relax in the class, yeah? So if you lay down and someone puts on some whales singing music and a nice... But it's easy to relax because it's a relaxing environment. So that's okay, but that's got nothing to do with training at all.
Training in any skills.
That's not internal training. That's just having a nice lie down. So you're not going to build any skills like that.
Okay, so a huge part of the training is developing an attitude towards it. So can you talk a bit more about that? The right attitude, if you like, or a useful, sustainable attitude, let's say.
Yeah, for sure. So, all this stuff that we talk about comes from our own experience, right? We've done many, many, many years of training. So there you go. So when I was a teenager, I used to do a lot of hard external training. Loads of weight training, running, boxing, kickboxing, loads of stuff. And you've also done lots of training, the kind of external training. And you just look around when people are doing that kind of stuff and they're usually kind of hating it, as they're kind of grimacing and hating it as they're doing it. So their attitude and the feeling in their heart is one of kind of
and their body,
anger and
muscles,
contraction.
yeah.
So what that's doing is that's adding more contraction and kind of agitating your mind and your nervous system more, even more than it already is, because it's a product of their modern culture. Okay, it has a very detrimental effect on training. So what we want to do when we're training people, a large part of the learning process is learning to have a nice, warm, open heart towards your experience of accepting the discomfort, yeah, and learning to work with that. Because if you do that, then you can really release and open the body, and you're going to learn so much about the nature of your body, much more than you can ever get from any books or podcasts. You got to do the training, right? You have to do it in the right way. You don't want your mind to be contracted, resisting, or running away from your experience.
Yeah, so you want an attitude of curiosity, don't you? And a kind of experimental attitude, and not kind of coming to it with full of preconceived ideas.
Yeah, for sure. So we often say, don't we, on our workshops and stuff and on our retreats, that all of the ideas, it's really all of the learning you've done before, all the ideas, the views, the opinions, the abstract concepts, all the funny stuff, you want to take that and put that down to one side, and even better, throw it away. So you have that nice, you already start to develop that nice open mindset.
So what you
curious mindset.
think you know, you fail to observe, right?
Oh, Sherlock Holmes. What you think you know, you fail to observe. Yeah, so all the ideas and stuff that we hold on to, so all a part of the training process, letting go of this stuff, stop us from seeing things and experiencing things as they really are.
Okay.
So it's a big part of the training.
So if people can start to do this or learn to do it, what are the benefits?
The benefits are major, and I can't emphasize them enough. But let's just look at them in turn. So the first major thing is that you're going to feel much better. Yeah, you're going to feel much better. You're going to have much more, a clear sense of freedom in your body and your mind. Okay, I don't think it gets much better than that. That's what you want. So you're going to feel much better, and you're going to be capable and confident and calm enough to enjoy your life, your interactions with other people, yeah, your family, your friends, your partner, and you're going to be able to develop real skills. So that whatever skill you do, you cannot do it without your body and your mind. And if they're hindered, if they're contracted, if they're blocked, if they're not open, if they're not integrated together, that's a hindrance.
Yeah, and I guess you're training in transferable skills, aren't you? Like paying attention, depth of perception, all of these skills that make a huge difference outside of...
All of the skills we work on are completely transferable. That's why we say training body and mind for life, right? You don't want to do training as like a separate kind of like schism from your life that then kind of like messes your life up because you're really neurotic or obsessed about training, right? It doesn't work. Your training should improve your life. Yeah, that's the whole point of doing training, is to enjoy your life more, not to do something weird or be separate. And, you want to be a benefit to other people and be, happy, functional person.
Okay, so where can people, if they wish to find out more information, where can they go?
So they can just have a look at the description below and check out the Internal Athlete website. And on there's details of our retreats and workshops and some articles and some learning resources.
And are they likely to find training resources on there? Training videos, I mean?
We don't do training videos, do we? We don't do online videos. And, and these days, there's millions of online training videos, and, some of them are okay. It's difficult enough learning this stuff, learning proper mind-body training with people in the flesh, right? But that's what you want to do. You want to come and hang out with us, yeah, and work. And it's essential that you get hands-on tactile corrections, because all the habits we have in the body and stuff, because they're habits, they're completely unconscious, right? So you need those adjustments, and you want to spend time with people. You don't want to just sit in your room trying to follow exercise. It doesn't really work.
Counterproductive.
In my opinion, it doesn't really work. So yeah, so is there anything else we want to discuss?
No, I think we're going to do a few more podcasts, are we?
We're going to be doing a few more podcasts about kind of more specific topics to do with training. And yeah, so thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Excellent. Thank you.